Sponsored by Squarespace.
I wish.
Hello and welcome to Crying in the Booked Club, the hit show where three emotional friends talk about comic books that make them emotional. And apparently music before. A lot of music before. I think we'll talk about more music next episode too with some Carly Rae, so stay tuned for that. But for now, the voices that you heard earlier are the lovely, the wonderful Emily.
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Would you say that you're more of a Jan or a Zana? Zan or Jana? Wow. Zan or Jana? Yeah.
I don't want to give away like all of my opinions on this comic,
Okay.
but I am a Zan.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I also... the number of panels posted to my comics Twitter captioned "He's just like me for real" is staggering.
He truly is a wonder.
I can confirm that.
Yeah, I had a feeling that John Luke was going to be passively observing my journey today.
And Jean-Luc is here. Hi, Jean-Luc.
I am. And I just have to say for the audience, the thing that Alex is referring to you is you hearing before the show, you will hear after the show, because that's where I put the stuff that we talk about at the beginning of the show.
I didn't even know you
That's
kept it all
fucked
in.
up.
I don't keep it all in.
Thank God.
There's things that get cut. I thought that it was probably better to, not subject the audience to my 15 minutes talking about the current run of Amazing Spider-Man. So I cut that down significantly.
Wow.
And stuck it at the end of the episode. So.
Some would say it doesn't exist. I don't know. I'm no Spider-Man.
I did keep the raw audio, so if people want to hear it, I can
just tweet at Jean-Luc.
Gotta make the Patreon.
I mean, you don't have to pay me for that. I do. That's wow. Free.
Wow. Well, it's not free unless you read it illegally. Huh?
Who has anyone on this podcast ever read anything illegally?
No.
Never.
We would never do that.
I'd like to try once.
That's what your patron money goes towards.
So that we don't have to break the law.
Oh, yeah, your Patreon money goes to me spending an untoward amount of money on comics after I discover the comic book store 10 minutes from my apartment.
It's wonderful. That is wonderful. But as we alluded to, or maybe didn't allude to, because I think we just said Wonder Twins, we are talking about Wonder Twins.
We sure are.
The 2019 miniseries turned maxi series, turned 2020 series, written by Mark Russell.
Hold on, what is a
maxi series?
What constitutes a maxi series?
It's 12 issues.
Okay.
Yeah, wait, mini is...
Yeah, what's a mini?
6. Well, I guess 4 to 6. 4 to 5 to 6.
Well,
anything less than 7.
So I think... okay, so a mini series is typically
3 as well.
A mini series is between 1 and 6. A maxi series is 7 to 12. Okay. Typically, this is not. Sometimes you will see a 7-issue referred to as a mini series. That's not hard and fast, but
I will say if it is 1 issue, it's just a one shot. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true.
I was familiar with that. I had no issues there. I guess I did not realize that 12 constituted a maxi series because I did just assume 12 seems mini to me, but
we did just read a lot of Berserk, read a lot
of Berserk.
So thinking we read 12 issues of the Wonder Twins maxi series. It's
this was took me easy breezy, beautiful cover girl.
That took me a tenth of the time that Berserk took, which was, Berserk was great, but
I will say this made me significantly less horny than Berserk. So
speak for yourself.
Okay, I will. Emily out here getting off to Count Druncula in the drinking people's blood in prison.
Poor Druncula. We'll get to him. I
know he's truly one of the guys of all time.
He is a guy of all time. But another 2 guys of all time are Mark Russell and Stephen Byrne, the people who created this here comic. And it was part of the Wonder Comics imprint, which sadly no longer exists, as many DC imprints, most DC imprints, all DC imprints except the current one generally does. That's how it kind of goes.
I gotta tell you, I did not realize that Wonder Comics was an imprint, and I thought it was just like a bit that they were doing because it's Wonder Twins.
It would be better that way. No,
It inexplicitly was like Wonder Twins and then like 4 Brian Michael Bendis books. For
the imprint premiered with the series Young Justice, followed by Naomi, which friend of the show Chad read all of. So he doesn't remember it though. We're like, oh Chad, yeah, you read Naomi. He's like, what the fuck's Naomi about? And it was like, okay, I remember you reading it. Dial H for Hero, and finally Wonder Twins. So this, I think, Wonder Twins was actually the final Wonder Comics book, unless
they
Bendis
all
did
came
another
out
one
around the
after.
same time. Right?
I saw
It was the last one though.
I
Yeah.
saw Wonder Comics on some of the covers, and I did just think it was like a bit.
Yeah.
I think that Amethyst book was also in the Wonder Comics imprint.
Interesting.
Could be.
We read that. This is we also read that for the old show.
I don't remember that.
See, and you're out here critiquing Chad for not remembering.
You read like 10 issues. I probably read half an issue of Amethyst.
I think he read more than 10 issues. I don't remember how many issues it was, but he read however many issues there were.
I feel like this imprint kind of did the old like Marvel Now thing where they only got like 12 issues and it was like a full like season thing, but there was not another season because I don't know.
Wasn't this was originally supposed to be 6, right? And
it was 6 issues, and then it sold so well, which is such a strange thing to say about a Wonder Twins comic. And it must have been based on expectations. Like maybe they put it out and they're like, "This is going to sell 5,000," and it sold like 30,000. And they were like, "Holy shit!" Like let's give Mark another 6 issues.
Well, you don't really expect a Wonder Twins comic to do anything, I guess.
No, because they're not originally from the comics. They're from the cartoon series, The Super Friends, in the 1970s.
Are.
Yeah, they were the worst part of that show. They would, but also the best way. They, the superheroes would do their thing, and they would have basically like PSAs where they'd be like, kids would be like racing a boat against each other, and the Wonder Twins would like find that, and the kids are about to die, and the Wonder Twins, step in with their powers, and they're like, maybe you shouldn't do that, or like kids were about to try drugs or something, and they were kind of like the PSA, like, whoa, if the Wonder Twins say it's bad, then maybe I shouldn't do cocaine every day of my life. I don't know.
I don't think that has any drawbacks.
Neither did the Wonder Twins. So yeah, originally slated for a 6 issue, it is a 12 issue maxi series, whatever you want to call it, and it focuses on Zan and Jaina, 2 people, twins, from the planet Exor, and they did something. Whoa, actually no, this is the wrong one. Oh no. Okay, no, here we go. Yes. So anyway, they were exiled from their planet because their ancestor committed some like not light war crimes, but like might have like murdered a lot of people based on like a race thing, which is mentioned later, which is kind of like, wow, interesting. And Superman is a friend of their father. He offers to bring the twins to live on Earth. Uprooted from their home planet, the twins must learn about their new home and navigate high school as well as their internship at the Hall of Justice. So volume 1, basically, they have these cool / lame shape-shifting powers that get activated when they bump fists. Jaina has the much cooler one because she can turn into any animal she can think of, whereas Zan can turn into water. And yeah, he can turn into like an ice gondola or like an ice thing, and that's generally all he's able to do. And the volume sort of,
he can turn into any permutation of water, so he can be
anything.
Mist, he could be fog, he could be anything water can be.
He sure can be. And we see them do some fun stuff. We see them make friends, we see them go on dates. They battle the sort of second tier Legion of Doom called the League of Annoyance, which are people with not the best powers.
I'm obsessed with them.
Some of the highlights of that is this guy named Druncula. They catch him, and he's clean. I mean, he's basically Dracula, but he hasn't drunk blood in a while. And he's like, I don't want to. 30 days sober, and the Wonder Twins catch him, and they put him in a cell. But it's not a cell on his own. No, it's with other people. So in the morning they come.
But that's not their fault. They tried to do what was best, and when he got to the jail, the people at the jail put him in the drunk tank where he was around people who were intoxicated that he could drink blood from and break his sobriety, and it was sad. They didn't mean for this to it.
He's also one of the characters that doesn't get a happy ending. Like, this happens, and that's the last we see of Druncula. He just kind of like, oh, he relapsed and he killed people, and he'd probably be in jail for a long, long time. But then Jaina goes on a date with like a supervillain, like he's kind of like a Teen Titans supervillain guy, and he's just like this dude, bro, who's like super,
Red
super.
Flag.
Yeah, his name is Red
I
Flag.
literally when they said his name was Red Flag, I just like I had to stop. I'm like, you cannot be serious.
It's great. And then Jan goes out on a date.
Mark Russell actually based that character on me.
Wow. Red Flag. Now, I've talked to Jean-Luc many times. He's not this person. But also, Zan goes out on a date with someone who's just trying to make her boyfriend jealous. And like, he learns that at the end, and he's like, well, I had a lovely night. I met 2 new friends, and I had popcorn. And it's like, oh my gosh, Zan.
So cute.
Such a wholesome guy. Jaina becomes best friends with a genius named Philomath. And unfortunately, her father is forced to work for Lex Luthor secretly, which
no, she
is her name not Philo?
No,
Philo's the dad.
Philo's the dad. Her name is Polymath.
Polly and Philomath. Fantastic. But Polly's dad ends up getting kind of vaporized by a member of the League of Annoyance, and it's like this character is just like a standard like Karen lady, but she has like a phone that like vaporizes people. So he gets vaporized, and this leads to Philo to work with another member of the League of Annoyance, the Scrambler, who wears a scrambled egg on his shirt and dressed in like orange and yellow.
I also really love the Scrambler.
The Scrambler is great, and he can scramble people's minds. And normally he can like swap minds, which is a really cool power for the League of Annoyance, and kind of like, you know, probably the highest of any of that. Which you know kind of leads into the thing where Polly and the Scrambler end up working together, and they have a plan. And you know, with her technological know-how and his scrambling, they swap minds with everyone in the world in 30 days. So by sending an email. So basically, like, they tell the world that, hey, in 30 days, the president's mind's going to go into a random body in the world, and it's probably not going to be better than the body he lives now. Which is a great moment, because it leads to the world's governments basically being like, okay, we need to end all war, all poverty, give everybody like, you know, basic human rights, because who knows what body I'm going to next. But then the fucking Wonder Twins mess it up with help from the Justice League, kind of, sort of.
They try really hard.
They're trying to do the good thing, but it ends up that the Scrambler and Philo and Polly get arrested, and they get stopped, and the arc, the first 6 issues, ends with the Scrambler on a little cliffhanger, asking for an email instead of a phone call, so that he can send the email and scramble everyone's brains, which is a lovely ending to a wonderful series. Except then there's also volume 2. So the second half, Polly is in jail, and we get introduced.
Which Alex hates. That's why he said, but then there's volume 2.
I can't say anything much till I finish this summary, because, yeah. But, you know, in the second half, Polly's in jail, and we get introduced to Repulso, who's a very smelly man, and whose power is that he's very smelly and lonely. And he's basically there.
Character that Mark Russell based on me.
You guys are, wow. But his job is basically like
trenches. We were in the Twitter trenches together. Me and
you were before they rebranded, and you guys left. It's a good time. But basically his powers are used to like stop in the book like a hockey riot, where people are like, our team won, yay, and they're like, you know, vandalizing. So they lower him down on a crane, and people are like, you smell, we were gonna leave. And that kind of works. But you know what? One of the Wonder Twins befriends this guy, because they end up being an animal that can't smell so well, and they end up playing Stratego, which is a game like Stratego, but they're not getting sued for it.
It's Strategno, I believe.
Strategno. That's even better. And I'm glad that this book really landed with you, Emily, that you know all the ins and outs and the funny little background stuff, which we'll get to.
I did really enjoy reading this. I don't want to just spoil my opinion for the whole show, but like, God, I had a great time with this fucking book.
We'll have to bleep that out. Polly escapes jail and confronts the Wonder Twins, where Jaina reveals that she thinks that actually Polly's dad is still alive. Polly doesn't trust her, but they end up working together, and they do end up saving Philo from the Phantom Zone. At the same time, an evil computer created by Philo in the 80s called Colonel 86 comes alive and takes over the world's computing power. And in the end, the Wonder Twins and the Philos put a stop to Colonel 86 and save the day. This leads to the Justice League being like, you shouldn't work with criminals, you know, and Zan and Jaina being like, we're trying to do good in the world. And the Justice League's like, oh shoot, you're right. So they end up putting them.
Jaina's just sitting there going, "Scoreboard, scoreboard."
She's just pointing. The Justice League, they take a few pages, but they come back and they actually put Zan, Jaina, Philo, and Polly in charge of Asterix, which is basically a threat assessment project. So maybe the Justice League doesn't have everything figured out. Maybe we should be a little more, kind and do good in the world, which is nice. And also, the Scrambler ends up getting freed, and a couple of bad schmucks end up getting put into Phantom Zone. So very cool. And that is Wonder Twins, volumes 1 and 2. So I know that Emily played that clip before the episode started, but what was your familiarity with Wonder Twins other than that clip, Emily?
I am so glad that you asked because, as a twin myself, the Wonder Twins have always been sort of like a weird, presence in pop culture because, they were in, older cartoons, like in some of the, Hanna-Barbera cartoons or whatever. I don't know entirely what the timeline is, but I remember seeing the Wonder Twins in old cartoons and shit, and being a twin, that was always just a weird thing for me, that there's a superhero duo that's twins. And so they've always kind of been a looming presence in my life, and I enjoy the comedic the comedic aspect of them, of she can turn into any animal, he can only turn into water or water based things. He's
Barbie, he's just Ken.
It literally,
it's the classic.
they really
I haven't seen the movie, I've seen the advertising.
But they do have a she's Barbie and he's just Ken sort of dynamic as far as their powers go. But I don't know. I was excited about the prospect of reading this comic just based on the fact that I was aware of them as pop culture entities, and this comic I really enjoyed. I thought was really funny and good, and I'm really glad that because you guys had talked about it before, and so I had an awareness that there was a decent Wonder Twins comic that had come out, but I'm glad that I had an excuse to read it for the show.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, to be clear, if you want to hear what Alex and I think, you can go back to the Comics Podcast archives and listen to that. So we're probably not going to say much for the rest of the show because Emily's the only one with new
It's all questions for Emily. Yeah.
It predates Emily's being a weekly contributor to the Comics Podcast.
It's true. But I guess, Jean-Luc, I don't know if you have any history with the Wonder Twins. Do you have a tattoo? You got
a tattoo? Yeah.
Wonder Twins tattoo? Oh my God. Wow.
My sister...
Why are they kissing is my question.
My sister has really been wanting to get a sister tattoos, so maybe I should suggest...
You should get Gleek.
You can get Zan and she can get Jaina, and they can be doing the fist bump. And when you put your arms together, it's like they're fist bumping. And there's a little.
I should really suggest that.
That's fantastic.
She won't do it, but I should really. I mean, it wouldn't be the first DC Comics character my sister has tattooed on her body, but.
Wait, what? I mean, you can tell us now, but maybe for the show you can tell us what the.
No, I can tell you that. I can tell you guys that my sister has a Wonder Woman tattoo.
Okay. That rocks. I was thinking maybe Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn or the Joker are my go. But those are the tattoos I see the most.
Harley Quinn would have been so funny, but no, my sister's way too normie for that. So she definitely has a Wonder Woman tattoo.
Nice.
Wonder Woman rocks. Speaking of Wonder Woman, next episode. What? Are we talking about my familiarity with the Wonder Twins?
Yeah,
sorry,
I
don't actually have a Wonder Twins tattoo. For those who are wondering.
But do you have a familiarity with the characters outside
and the
of
brand?
This.
I own the Lego minifigures of Zan and Jaina.
Those are hard to find.
Nice.
But I bought them after reading this comic. To be clear, I knew about them. I knew about the Wonder Twins before. My dad used to talk about how much he liked the Wonder Twins as a kid because I think he watched.
Funny.
I think
Wow.
he watched
Super Friends.
probably Super Friends, right?
Yeah.
When he was
Yeah,
timing
I'm
lines
probably
up, so.
thinking of Super Friends.
They had, I
Instead of
mean,
doing
That's where they're
video.
from. I
they had
think.
they had different Super Friends shows for like a decade.
Sure.
So a lot of different iterations.
So I knew about them from that, but I didn't like. I've never seen an episode of Super Friends in my life. Like I've seen clips from it, but I've never actually watched it. So this was like really my first, like when this came out, this is the first time I ever like read a comic with the Wonder Twins in it, or consumed like really any media with the Wonder Twins in it. I mean, maybe they appeared somewhere prior to it, but if they did, I don't remember. I think they showed up in the Superman run at this time, but I think I was so far off that Superman book at that point that I just didn't.
I think
wasn't reading at that point.
in lead up to Identity Crisis, which is a DC Comics event.
Oh,
with
that's
Wild Stuff. It's not the Wonder Twins that get brutally murdered. It's Marvin the Wonder Dog and the two people. It's basically the precursor to the Wonder Twins.
Yeah. That
And they were
familiar.
like, you know what, Zan and Jane have powers. These were just regular teenagers, who hung out and kind of did the same thing that the Wonder Twins did, except they couldn't do anything, but they had a dog. But then
and
DC
like
Comics
many other
was like-
characters in Identity Crisis,
exactly.
very bad things happened. To
Then
them.
to spoil, like they brought him to comics just to have him brutally murdered. Like I don't know, it is an edgy time at DC Comics, which when is it not, I guess, but especially then. How did your expectations, I guess, Emily, of everything you heard about the book and everything compare to like how it actually was? Was this the kind of book you were expecting, or?
I mean, I didn't really have any expectations for the book itself, which I am almost a little surprised by, like, just at myself, I guess. Like, I remember hearing you guys say, like, this Wonder Twins book that came out was good, and I was like, hell yeah, Wonder Twins. But I had, like, literally no expectation for, like, what the content of this book was gonna be, like, what it being good even meant, like what kind of good it could be. So I just sort of like dove right in, and it was just like from the get-go it was just extremely like funny and charming, and like the art is not like my favorite, but like it is good and it is extremely competent. So like yeah, I just starting out, like I started off having a really good experience with this book, and throughout I enjoyed all 12 issues.
Heck yeah.
It does not shock me that you liked this book. Like it feels very much like this is something that Emily would like, which is part of why I'm glad that we ended up doing it for the show, because
I'm glad I had an excuse to read it, because otherwise I probably would not have gotten around to it.
So yeah, Jean-Luc, did you like it?
Oh, I love this book. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like you can go back and hear me raving about this book for every time one of the first 6 issues came out, and then even into the second half of the book too. You can probably find the blog post that I wrote about the first issue. I remember when this first issue came out was it 2019 or 18?
I
think
think
19, yeah.
This book is dated 2019. So.
2019, yeah. I just remember reading it and being like completely bowled over by the first issue of this book. Like I was like really excited about it because it was kind of at a time when I was not feeling super positive about DC stuff. Like there just weren't very many DC books coming out that I liked. And this, like, it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon that was actually written for adults. And not in the sense that like people normally say that, like, you know, how people will say, oh, Pixar movies, they're like animated movies, but they have things in them for adults. This almost kind of like flips that, where it's like, it's a comic that's written for older, more mature audience, but it has the vibes of like a Cartoon Network show or something. And I mean that very positively. Like it's very like classic Silver Age superhero stuff.
I mean, issue 1, they're fighting against Mxyzptlk, and they end up taking him down in that issue, and it's because of help from the computer. And even Mxyzptlk's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like when they like figure out a way to take him down, he's like, that doesn't make any sense, as he's like fading away. And it's like,
and you know that Mr. Mxyzptlk is like one of my all-time favorite Superman villains.
I actually didn't know this.
Oh, okay. I love Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Okay, cool. Like I just
when we get to
legitimately did not know this.
when we eventually get to Grant Morrison's Action Comics, you will understand why I love Mr. Mxyzptlk.
I am.
He's a
I am
goofy
also
guy.
very excited for that. So
He fucking rocks. He does not get like a lot of time in the first issue, but just the fact that Mark Russell is like right from the get-go, you know, dropping in a character with the absurdity of Mxyzptlk, which at that time of DC Comics, it was all the like Watchmen crossovers, and like Scott Snyder was writing like Dark Knight's Metal. It was all this
The advertisement
super
in this trade is for Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, it's all this stuff that I just despised, and this was such a breath of fresh air in terms of being like what I want from superhero comics. Because like I mean I love edgy superhero comics, like, you know, as the Daredevil Born Again defender, like there is a part of me that loves those books, but I think in terms of like what I want most from superhero fare is this like lighter stuff. And not that this book is light, because it has like some surprisingly good satire, like political satire, but it is like, it's fun. It's like there's an energy to it and a vibe to it that's just like fun to read. You sit down and you can knock out 12 issues of this in an afternoon, like Emily did. Because she procrastinated, like normal.
But it really sets the tone, like even in the first
it's really
issue. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's just really fun the whole way throughout. I think it like there are some problems I have with some of the later issues, but the whole time it is just like when it gets back to that core of just like Zan, well, in particular Zan, but also Jaina just getting up to hijinks and being goofy. It is fantastic. Yeah. And that's what Mark Russell's always done really well. Like Alex and I, we were both huge Mark Russell fans, I think, coming into this book. So I think you and I, when this book first came out, had some expectations for it, probably more than like the average comic book reader at that time. Although it was coming off Snagglepuss, which I don't think either of us really cared for.
And Flintstones was before that too.
I'm Snagglepuss curious.
We could read that. We could read Flintstones, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I read a couple issues of Flintstones and enjoyed it.
I hate that comic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or maybe it'll be better. I don't know.
I would be curious to read it now, but I just hate that they like made the Flintstones about the Vietnam War. Like I did not find that to be particularly
disagree with you.
This was like, this is like still a joyful book. And I mean, even that first issue, it takes the whole thing where like the whole Justice League is like, oh my God, we're going against Mxyzptlk and he's like a big threat. And then it's like the Wonder Twins like show them like, like they solve the issue, and it sets the tone for like, I guess the thesis of this book and like, what it means to be a hero.
They put Mr. Mxyzptlk in a 2008 YouTube 360 no scope compilation. Like they fucking owned his ass.
They really did.
To be clear, for those who haven't read the book, one of the ways you can defeat Mr. Mxyzptlk is by forcing him to say his own name backwards. And that sends him back to the fifth dimension. So what they do is Mr. Mxyzptlk comes into the Hall of Justice, and Zan and Jaina have the computer that the Justice League no longer uses because it's so old and irrelevant. But they befriend this like sentient computer, and they have it record Mr. Mxyzptlk saying his name and then reverse the audio. So it's Mr. Mxyzptlk's voice saying his name backwards, but it has the same effect, and it sends him back to the fifth dimension. So
he's
and then Jaina is just like so nonchalant about it. It's like when you like have the op in CS:GO and you just like ace the opponent's team, and then you're just like, yeah, I'm just like that. I'm just smooth. I'm just iced. Like,
and then
ice
you feed for the next 25 rounds. But anyway,
yeah, exactly. but I think you can feed for the next like 25 rounds. The Wonder Twins do be taking some L's in this book.
True. It's true.
But it's like, and I think that issue like really sets the tone for the rest of the series. It's phenomenal stuff.
Who are y'all's favorite characters? And I'll start with Jean-Luc this time.
I'm a Jaina girly. I'm a Jaina head. I mean, I have to be honest. I'm blanking on his name, but the smelly guy is my actual favorite character in this book. I find him. He shows up like in 2 issues, I think, but both times he shows up, he's like, you just feel so bad for him because he's like the friendliest dude and wants to just like hang out and play board games and, you know, watch Blu-rays with his homies, but everyone hates him because he smells really bad, which like I get not wanting to hang out with people who smell bad. Like that's fair. But like you feel really bad for him because it's not like he has bad hygiene and that's why he smells bad. He just naturally does. So I find him very endearing. But also like the sort of like teenage melancholy of Jaina speaks to me on a deep and personal level. And also the fact that the number one villain in her life is Superman, also very much like me. The number one villain in my life, Superman, the hated Kal-El. So I really appreciate the way that Jaina is written in this book. I really enjoy Jaina.
I mean, like, I really enjoy Jaina. She is very much a character written for me, but like Zan, I just like every time he did anything, I'm just like, oh man, buddy, like I relate to you so hard.
It's like Jaina's like a character that is written for you, and then Zan is a character that is just like even more written.
He's not dumb, but he's so earnest that it's like
I love him so much. Like,
yeah,
she's just like Emily. She's not dumb, but she's really earnest.
Yeah,
that's the slogan.
Yeah, but oh man, like I have so many screen caps of him just like saying stupid stuff. Like, I think my favorite Zan moment, I have to say, is when they're at the garlic dungeon, which by the way, like I need a garlic dungeon t-shirt because what a fucking like brilliant Olive Garden parody. But he's trying to order dinner and he says he'll have the scared tuna, and the waitress is like, do you mean the seared tuna? And I don't know, something about the scared tuna just like, I love him so much.
No, he rocks. The Zan moment that really speaks to me, and this is also in Emily's Twitter thread. If you go to @PandaReads Comics on Twitter, or sorry, on X, my bad. The moment where after they apprehend the maths and Zan tells his friends, tells the people at school that he like set and that's why he said to the scrambler, and your egg is scrambled. At least that's what I would have said if I thought about it at the time. And it's like, damn, that's the most like, that's the realest shit ever. That's like when I'm in the shower, like 2 weeks ago, thinking about how I should have easily dispatched my debate opponent in 12th grade, and exactly what I could have said to win the moment. But you know,
those are great answers, and I love Zan and Jaina, but I'm a Lex Luthor head, and if you could see the camera, also, I'd be bald.
The Lex Luthor presence in this book. Like, I guess I didn't know that he owned Fox News, and so, like, the reality of Lex News and, like the what is it, the fucking show called?
Judge, Jury, and Lexecutioner?
No, that's the tagline. What is the show called? It has Lex in it, but anyway, like, that shit, I laughed so fucking hard. And
everybody looks like Lex Luthor. It doesn't matter if it's like a guy or a girl, or like they're just shaved, and like and then there's Pundit Bot, which is also another one of my fan favorites.
I love Pundit Bot.
Pundit Bot's great.
I love Pundit Bot.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of like this. I guess this was a question we go into, but there's a lot of silly like background details in this world, like the garlic dungeon. Lex and Balances. And then
it's so good.
And then one of the guys, and then they have Scarecrow there as the straw man, and he just has his argument, and it's so good. It's so good. That's also, I guess, my answer for this question I haven't asked yet. But there's so many like background details and like silly things, and my favorite one is definitely like LexCorp News and all that fun stuff going on. How about you guys?
I do love the judge on that being like the most explicit, like Janine Pirro parody, which you will not understand unless you are like Mark Russell. Like, this is one of the upsides of Mark Russell having severe 2016 lib on Twitter brain poisoning, is that he knows, like, he doesn't just know Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham. He knows the like C-tier Fox News hosts well enough to shit on them in a DC comic.
And it's so funny.
It rocks. He's hilarious. It's very, very funny. In terms of like background stuff, I mean, I wish I had like made more notes of stuff like this, because there are so many great just like background jokes in basically every issue of this series.
And like, it feels like every page is like chock-a-block with something.
I love the beware of invisible jet sign on the Hall of Justice.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
I like that the secret headquarters for the League of Annoyance is in a Web Toys building. Really enjoyed that. There's like there's like a line of dialogue where Polymath says, I think everyone needs at least an hour a day to be alone with their brain, and Zan says, that sounds terrifying. That I really related to. That I took a screen cap of.
One of the other things is there's the issue where Zan and Jaina are on the high school reunion committee, and it opens with their principal his like morning routine, and one of the things is him opening like the fake DC Universe version of Tinder, and instead of couching it like at all, it just says 0 people like you, which is very funny.
Yeah,
just that's how it feels, swiping
like
on Tinder sometimes. But
I would like to point out, because I have the screen cap, or I have the cap in front of me right here. It is called Sad Dads Dating, but sadder.
It's like he wrote that in the notes for the art. It's like he wrote that in the notes for the art, and the artist just like, I'm keeping this. This is it.
One of my favorites is there's the sign for the juvenile detention center that's owned by LexCorp or LexCon. It says prison kids, and kids is with a Z, and then it says a subsidiary of Lexicon.
Because I'm scrolling through it right now, this is also in issue number 8, which is the reunion issue. There's a shot of the library with a poster of Gun Cop that says "Gun Cop says read," and Gun Cop, of course, is the as I think Emily and Alex alluded to, when Zan goes on the date with the girl, they are seeing Gun Cop, and
yeah.
Zan is really into Gun Cop, which also apparently, and I'm just remembering this now, but apparently it is like a play, not an actual movie. If you go to that issue, there's a shot. I need to look at it now, but I remember noticing this when I was reading the issue. So I'm trying to find
Superman and Batman also. I think it's in the last issue. They trade a line of dialogue, be like, you know what? We need to be better. And then they're like, but let's go see Gun Cop later. We're on for 8:00. And they're like, yeah. So then they go see their film.
Well, Superman and Batman, Clark and Bruce have to go on their little dates.
That's cute.
They have to get away from, Selena and Lois for a night and go on their little boy dates.
Yeah. I also love in the reunion one where they open up a casino and Zan's just like full on like sketchy casino man. He's like, I'm gonna break your knees, kind of thing.
Oh my god, I definitely took screen caps of that moment, because like he's like, he goes so hard, and then he's like, I see now that the animal here was me, or whatever. I love him so much.
It's good. It's good. It's funny.
So good.
And then at the same time, the series like tackles like a number of like serious like topic or like
Like,
stuff like
for instance, a serious topic, when your twin says that when they say that they are the older sibling when they are only a minute to 3 minutes older than you.
that is
Not
Are
weird.
you
something-
the older sibling?
No, I am not. My sister is a single minute older than me, and I have lived it down my entire life. So when there was the moment of like them doing the fist bump, and like Jaina refers to Zan as little brother, and he's like, "You're only 3 minutes older than me." Like, that was the realest shit in the world.
Oh,
That was so real.
I'm glad it's authentic for the twin experience.
This
yeah.
book, I can say, I feel like this book is authentic to the twin experience.
So you should just have your sister read it, and you should
Yeah.
wonder twin pill your sister.
Yeah, and then the tattoo
and
comes.
convince her to get the tattoo.
Yeah.
Actually, that would almost work, I think. I feel like I wouldn't even have to. I feel like I could just say, Ashley, do you want to get a Wonder Twins tattoo? And she'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
My sister's
Sound
been
like-
wanting to get twin tattoos with me for years, so I think she would just jump at whatever opportunity I gave her.
Jean-Luc, do you want to get Gleek tattoos? On
Can
our-
we,
on our-
the three of us, we can
Yeah.
get Gleek tattoos. I'd do that.
You can't get two Wonder Twin
Yeah,
tattoos though.
See, no, but
That's-
the thing is the only tattoos I have on my body right now are ones that are like companion tattoos with other people. So this would just be like continuing the trend.
If Chad's in on it, I'll do it.
It would be really easy for Emily too, because if she puts Zan on her arm and her sister puts Jan on her arm, then she can just put Gleek like sitting on Zan's shoulder. It would just be like a
Exactly.
natural extension.
Companion piece.
So it's
Wow.
kind of like a 2-for-1 thing where it can be like her twin tattoo, but
Yeah.
also, and some would say more importantly,
I
Not
would say
me.
more importantly.
the podcast co-host tattoo.
Woo!
I
Podcast.
would say more
Woo!
importantly for sure.
Podcasts. Yay.
I am at any moment ready to get a matching tattoo with any person I'm on a podcast with.
You're on a lot of podcasts.
Do you have matching tattoos with all your other podcast co-hosts?
Are we the last?
No, just only one, and then the other one is I have like they're not matching, but like I have like a complimentary tattoo with my
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Okay, nice.
Nice. Yeah, funny comic. But I mean, Mark Russell also puts in a few, serious topics or things in the thing. Like, he goes like, "Oh, prison industrial complex, policing, capitalism."
They're trying
And then
to
some like gay
address,
marriage
like,
stuff with like Colonel
ra-
86
and
that I was like,
racism
a
and
a lot of stuff thrown at the wall.
I don't feel like as much as I like this book, I don't feel like it really adequately tackles any of the like socio-political topics that come up in this book.
I think I will say
I
this.
don't think it does a bad job. I just don't think it does a job, really.
I think he does a pretty good job with the prison stuff.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like out here expecting him to be like writing a manifesto. Like
Sure,
I'm
sure,
sort of,
sure.
but for what the book is, like, I think that he does a good, because there's like a bit in issue 2 where the Wonder Twins tour a prison and they see that it's like, as with American prisons, like it is just contemporary enslavement.
Because on
basically.
their planet, they don't have prison. The worst thing that they have
Yeah, they just
is
fuck-
community college.
Oh, yeah. And then they had the fuck day.
They fuck every time there's a thunderstorm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the
Thunderlust.
Thunderlust
Which,
also
honestly,
underrated part
me
of
and-
the book.
Me and who? I'm
Right?
saying.
Right.
But they tour the prison, and then Jaina becomes radicalized and becomes hashtag defund the police prison abolitionist.
Let's go.
Pre George Floyd protests, so she was really ahead of the curve on this stuff. And she like has this whole arc where she tries to convince the Justice League that like they shouldn't just send people to prison because the system is like completely broken. And there's this great moment in issue 3 where Beast Boy is like, well, I don't know, it works. And he just like completely brushes it off. And you can see Jaina. This is also another very Jean-Luc moment where someone is like, no, like things are things work, and she's losing her fucking mind. I feel like this like so often talking to people. Like, no, it does not work. It's completely fucking broken. And, you know, even like to the point where like even Superman is like, yeah, we just, you know, we have to work within the system we're given. I think that element of the book is really strong, but I would agree. I would agree with you, Emily, that some of the other stuff, especially as the book progresses, I think it gets weaker.
Yeah.
The sort of like political satire.
The stuff in the first 6, I think, is like actually really tight, and it like is satisfying. And the place where it ends, I think, makes it powerful too, because you're at a point where you're like, wait a minute, these people decided to get rid of all the laws that were going to like, you know, make the world better because they're not getting scrambled anymore. And the kicker is like, they're going to get scrambled maybe right away kind of thing. And it's going to happen. And it's like a nice open ending that way, which doesn't end up happening. So,
I mean, it is a very, very much like it is the standard, like kind of, this is I think, okay, sorry, that was kind of a mess, but I think the correct lens to look at this through is not so much that it's satirizing or commenting on real life politics, though it kind of is, but more that it's a critique of like the politics of superhero comics specifically, which is that often you have villains in superhero comics who are right or empathetic, but they just take it too far. This is a very common trope in superhero comics, that the villain is right, but their solution is to kill millions of people or whatever. And Wonder Twins kinds of posits that, like, in fact, it's the opposite, that the villains are right, but the only way to extract the concessions that are actually necessary is to take it to this length that seems comical. That, like, it's this, like, and we see this bear out in reality all the time. It's not just a superhero comics thing, but, you don't actually extract concessions from people by, like, doing it quote unquote the right way, by, like, protesting, doing like peaceful protests for 2 hours and then going home and then voting every 4 years or whatever. Like, these sort of extreme methods are the only way to extract the kinds of concessions that you're looking for. And so when the Scrambler and Polly hatch their plan, like, the threat of it alone is enough to get what they want. Like, they are on the verge of success and frankly would not have actually had to go through with their plan. Like, that is the bit at the end of issue 6, is that it's just the threat of something that, like, society altering. And obviously, like, it's on a scale we would never see in reality. Like, he's threatening to scramble the brains of 7 billion people or 8 billion people. Like, it's totally different than anything that would exist in reality, which is why I think it's, more of a critique of the superhero tropes in particular. And what does the Justice League do? They show up and ruin it at the 11th hour. They show up and they stop the big bad thing from happening.
Because I mean, if
and
you
the
had
result is that
billion people scrambled, like, you have a baby on like nuclear codes or whatever. Like, from that, it makes sense, but it's like,
right. Well, except for the fact that yeah. And what does that do? Like, everybody, all of a sudden, people become rational actors because they aren't owned by other interests, and they're all of a sudden owned by their own self-preservation instincts, which is, if I get scrambled with a 6-year-old, I don't want them to have access to the nuclear codes, so we should denuclearize.
And the people who are most desperate are the people who have the most power, which is why, they show the president, they show those people. It's like, the chances of me getting a better deal, probably not happening. So let's make everybody's life better just in case I go there.
Can I just say that one of the most gratifying moments of this book for me was definitely when Lex Luthor was in space and he was being taunted by that intern. Like, the joy, sorry, I hit my microphone. The joy, the schadenfreude, like, it was delicious, I have to say. Like,
Because so what happens is Lex does what
the scrambling, it can't go to space or whatever for whatever reason. So like Lex shoots himself into space and ends up like realizing that maybe this was not the most 100 idea he's ever had.
when his intern is ordering hundreds of dollars of DoorDash on the company credit card,
and all he has to do is say his name, and he can't.
Yeah, he can't. Yeah, no, it's a great moment.
Love it.
And so I think in that way, like what the book is doing is very effective. Some of the other stuff I agree. I don't think, to an extent, I admire him for trying, but I don't think Mark Russell has the wherewithal to tackle an issue like the police killings of African Americans. I think that more or less falls flat. And props to him. He kind of realizes it's falling flat and ejects from that plot line really quickly.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, you kind of get the sense that like he thought he was a genius when he came up with it. And then after that issue went to print was like, maybe I'm not the right person to be tackling this, and kind of shuffled it off to the side.
I was disappointed, but in the way that some of the plot lines or some of like the things that seemed to be getting set up sort of felt abandoned. But I prefer that to it being executed poorly. So because overall, I felt I still left this book with a really strong impression, and if like those issues had been handled badly, I can't say that would be the same. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and even like I love the front half. I love the first 6 issues. I think it's like tight. I think it's snappy. I think there's so many funny moments, but also so many moments that are like, oh cool, like they're actually like doing something here. And I just love that cliffhanger where it's like everyone's mind's gonna get scrambled, yay! And then when the book comes back, it's like so different. And then it kind of like with the Colonel 86 stuff, I felt like that was just kind of like he's there, and then they take him down.
It like I'll admit it felt kind of weird, but because I did read this all like in one big chunk, I don't necessarily have that divide because it was just like I never had a moment of like, oh, this is an actual cliffhanger because like I know that there's 6 more issues. So like there wasn't any sort of gravity to that for me, and I guess that makes for a different absorption experience for the story.
I'm actually with Emily on this, and I remember Alex, you and I and Chad were all I think we all continued to like the book like when it went to issue 7 to 12, like we enjoyed it, but we were very critical about how it felt like Mark Russell had plotted 6 issues and the other 6 sort of fell into his lap and he didn't really have a plan to go through with them. But I will say that reading all 12 back to back, this is the first time I've read it since, we read it monthly back in 2019 and 2020. It feels way more, there's a much more fluidity to it, in my opinion. I felt like it flows way smoother into the second arc when you don't have, because there was also like maybe a 5-6 month delay in between.
Because like, I mean, he didn't know he was getting 6 more issues, and he kind of did.
Yeah,
like, cool.
And so I think without that, like that time skip in between of like not having issues for like however many months it was, and then all of a sudden having issues again, it feels much more seamless. Even though I do think like I still kind of hold on to that notion that the first 6 issues are really tightly plotted, and the second set is just the writing is just a little less sharp.
He definitely had like ideas where things were going to, and like like the first arc ends, and there's things where it's like, oh, like where's Polly's dad, and it's like, oh, the Phantom Zone, like you see like a shot of it, like there are things going forward that it's like it can build towards, but didn't feel like there was 12 issues worth. And I think the main thing, No, I just think like the main thing was rereading this though was like I forgot how many funny bits there were from 7 to 12 still that made it like as much as I felt like it wasn't as coherent and it wasn't as, as solid of a story, there were still so many funny moments that happened in 7 to 12 that I forgot about. Because I remember the ones from 1 to 6, basically, like everyone that came up, I was like, oh, there we go. There's Red Flag. Like, okay, cool, cool, cool. And the second half still had so many funny ones, like the one we talked about, like Luthor coming back from space or trying to, and then the Wonder Twins pretend to be like Gorilla Grodd to like send him in there. They lock him in a
That's
cage.
really
and,
funny. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that was so good. I literally was like, I like kind of cheered a little bit when they did that. I was like, yeah, like what a good little ruse.
Yeah, that was great. My hypothesis is sort of that after DC fucked Mark Russell over on Second Coming, which kind of happened in the middle of Wonder Twins coming out, I think his focus was much more on his like non-DC stuff in terms of what he was writing.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I don't
Makes sense.
that may or may not be the case. But if it is, I can't say that I blame him because he got a raw deal on.
So
on
it's the last
Second
DC
Coming.
book Mark Russell's
So-
done. No, I think he did a Riddler one shot, maybe.
I
Maybe.
don't remember. I know that in the, I think it was the Catwoman holiday spot. There was some weird thing
Don't say
where he did like a 6-page prez
Emily just
ending.
left too.
Emily
Yeah,
left.
yeah, that was so bad. That was so
I
bad.
know. I know. I'm
It's like-
with you on that.
It's like why
So-
bring it back? Oh man, that is still the most like
Yeah, so I don't think this was literally the last
DC
thing he wrote
Comics.
for DC Comics, but there was a time when he was like, he wasn't like a Scott Snyder or Jeff Johns kind of guy, but he was like a solid, like mid-tier DC Comics writer that was getting a lot of work at DC.
he was pretty critically acclaimed. I think he got an Eisner nom, maybe a win for Flintstones, and
And
I'm not sure what
Snagglepuss got-
Snagglepuss. Yeah,
Snagglepuss got noms. I don't know if it won. I think
it got
Flintstones
a GLAAD
did
award, I
win.
think, too, for Snagglepuss.
It did,
If I'm remembering
yes.
correctly.
And Prez was very well reviewed. Prez, died too soon.
Prez very well reviewed by this. Well, I guess not this show. The previous show.
This show was a little mid on it.
Alex and Jean-Luc love Prez.
Okay.
It was other like insofar as there is a
Wait, did we read Prez for this show or did we read it for the other show?
We
I
might have
guess
read it for
I-
well, both.
predates Comics Podcast.
No, I know.
Because
I
we
just-
read it, we
no.
did a collection. I don't know if it was a book club or if it was
We did it for the last. We did do it for the last show. That
Okay,
is
that's
correct.
what I was
We-
asking because I read it with you guys.
Yeah.
During
Yeah.
during COVID, yeah, we did a book club episode on Prez,
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
which was also very well liked by everybody on that show. If I
Yeah.
remember
Yes.
And it's
correctly.
very, I mean, like, I love Mark Russell's, like, very Mark Russell core, if you will. Like, I just love his general look. And, like, I haven't read anything in a while because I guess it was this thing. Then I read Second Coming, the first volume and stuff like that. And then I'm sure he's working
I think
on other
he's
stuff.
still doing Second Coming books, like books in that universe.
I'll have to go back and see.
Which is, for those who don't know what Second Coming is, it was originally supposed to be a DC comic where we had the Second Coming of Christ in the DC universe, and he became best friends with Superman. And DC was going to
I'm
publish.
sorry, what?
Yes,
Yeah.
the Second Coming.
I'm sorry, what?
So
It
here's
was
the
written-
concept.
I'm sorry, what?
It's
I'm
not.
sorry, what?
So it's not. So it's the Second Coming of Christ, specifically because God thinks that Jesus is such a bum and a failure of a son, so he sends him back to Earth to learn from Superman.
How to be a
Because-
real
Did they do this
hero.
with Thor in the Marvel universe? That feels like a Thor thing.
Maybe. I mean, Thor is literally a god, so
Yeah.
maybe, but I don't know for sure. But at the last second, DC caved to.
They caved to, like, I don't know, like, fucking mommy bloggers.
They
on,
didn't
like,
even cave to
Christian-
like. They didn't even cave to like Ben Shapiro. They caved to somebody with like 150 readers on WordPress or something like that, and canceled the book. But they let Mark Russell like keep ownership of the scripts, so he took it over to Ahoy, which is that Mark Wade's?
No.
Mark Wade's is something else. Where he rewrote, it did get released, but with a character that is not actually Superman, but a very clear like Superman stand-in. It's good, but I would have loved to see the DC version of this.
It would have been, very, very interesting. Something that Grant Morrison, I feel, would do.
Wild.
But we have Mark Russell.
I'd never heard of this before.
In Grant Morrison's Green Lantern run, they do have the Christian God.
Kind of.
There's a twist, but yes.
that.
Yeah. And those covers, like, fantastic.
The
It's
Liam
just like-
Sharp covers, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Where Green Lantern's like, I'm gonna fight you, God, and God's like, I'm gonna get you. Yeah.
See, the thing is, Grant Morrison had the cachet to tell DC, like, you don't get to tell me what to do.
Sure.
Whereas Mark Russell, the thing is, he doesn't have that cachet. I wish he did, because I feel like there is a sicko Mark Russell comic out there that is never going to see the light of day.
But I think
No, you're so right.
now that he's with Ahoy and stuff, like but I
But
feel
it's
like
not the same, because there is a difference between doing independent sicko comics. Like, that's the whole point of independent comics, is like they are for sickos.
But then you're
That's what
Frank
makes them
Miller,
beautiful.
and you're like, I'm
When
not going to draw
you-
this comic. I'm going to get Jim Lee to draw it, and it's going to be called Batman and Robin All Star.
See, that's the thing, is when you get an all-star Batman and Robin, or a Grant Morrison Green Lantern, or Batman Reptilian, when you get to have or again, next episode, we're going to be talking about Grant Morrison's Wonder Woman Earth 1. When you get to have these iconic characters put in sicko scenarios, there is a different level of like enjoyment that at least I, as somebody with a lot of affinity for DC and Marvel characters, can get from that.
Well, it's like we see so much of the same shit with DC and Marvel characters that when you get a Reptilian, or you get them in weird scenarios, like, oh, like Green Lantern's fighting God. It's like, oh, I thought he just fought the Sinestro Corps. That's cool.
Yeah. When I get the extremely horny Garth Ennis Killer Croc comic,
Batman Reptilian is a comic that I'm going to think about for the rest of my life.
That is like, it is like the most David Cronenberg comic I have ever read.
We should do an episode of Batman Reptilian.
We should. Dude, I will take any chance to evangelize for Batman. And I know we're off on a tangent. We'll get back to Wonder Twins. Any chance I have to evangelize for Batman Reptilian.
I think
truly.
What a book.
we could find a companion book, do that. Reptilian's so short, but we could do that one and something else, because I think it's only a 4-issue. But we could do a sicko week.
God, I love
we can
Batman
just post it
Reptilian. We have to find I guess Wonder Woman Earth 1 is kind of like a weirdly horny DC book, but it's not horny in the same way as Batman Reptilian.
It's not
have
like
Impreg.
depraved. No.
God.
But that brings us to my
Killer Croc is something that I never thought would escape E621.
That brings us to the
Garth
final
Ennis-
question.
Dylan
Ennis made it a
Caldwell says
reality.
Impreg Killer Croc is something that can be so personal.
Who do you think cries the most in this Wonder Twins comic? You can't say pregnant Killer Croc.
Zan cries the most.
You think Sand? No.
He's
it's
water.
Jim.
He's literally water.
But it's not a choice. It's not like a.
He becomes tears.
But he has like such a happy-go-lucky mentality. And does he ever once become Tears in the book? I don't think so.
Thunderlust.
Well, he does feel really embarrassed when he has his first boner and while he's giving a presentation to the class, which we've all been there.
We've all been there.
But he has such a happy-go-lucky attitude that I feel like he doesn't cry. I feel like Jaina, like, she might be like too tough to cry, and that's sort of like, early 2000s strong female protagonist archetypical sort of way. But I feel like she's inner feelings a lot, and I agree with the Druncula thing. Druncula, yes, absolutely cries a lot.
Druncula probably.
I think the bug guy also is crying a lot. I feel bad for like.
I love Praying Mantis.
Yeah. I really like, one thing I will say I'm really bummed is that we only get amphetamine like once. She has an amazing line, and she has an amazing line about how she's like trying to recruit evil children, which is very funny. And then I don't think she really gets much after that, but I would have loved to have seen more.
She's so funny.
She's very funny. The whole League of Annoyance concept does
I
just
love
rock.
them so
We-
much.
Mini-series League of Annoyance. Do you think it has enough to like?
Please, I will buy every copy.
I think absolutely. And it's that's another thing where it's like, to go back to like the superhero tropes. I feel like this is something that like Morrison really popularized, but then a lot of writers have sort of followed in their footsteps on this, where they go back to like the Silver Age, find these goofy characters and reboot them in a serious way. You know, like Tom King did that whole thing where he made like Kite Man a serious character with like, he gave Kite Man had depression. The most like, I want to fucking blow my brains out era of DC Comics. Mark Russell does the opposite, where he goes back and finds these goofy characters, and in some cases, I think these are new characters. He's just like, no, they're just stupid. Like Count Dracula, very stupid. Amphetamine, stupid. Praying Mantis, stupid. But also, you're gonna love these guys, and you know what?
Yeah.
I love those guys.
It's like
I do.
It's like the pencil from like the Silver Age Batman comics. Like
Eraser, yeah.
remember that one about the Eraser? It's
Yeah.
like he would fit right in here,
Yeah.
and it's cool that you can create your own
Absolutely.
characters with it. But it has that spirit.
So charming.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is that Silver Age mentality of just like, what's the goofiest concept you can have come to your head? And like, don't take it like the whole ethos of this book feels like you can't take superheroes that seriously. And again, am I pro serious superheroes when they're done right? Absolutely. Am I at the same time much more excited when people are like, yeah, these superhero guys, they're stupid and dumb and funny. Don't you love them? And I'm like, yeah, those are my guys.
You have to have a certain affinity for superheroes to be able to do the superheroes are dumb. Well.
Yeah. That's the thing, is it's not like because sometimes you'll read stuff and it's clear that the writers like do not like superheroes, do not
Gareth
like
Ennis
the
and
characters.
Yes.
Well, that's justified, but not that The Boys is good, but I understand his perspective. But you know, you watch a Marvel movie and you're like, oh, the people writing this don't actually care about these characters in a real way.
Yeah.
Whereas you read this, and even though it's like taking the absolute piss out of like even like major Justice League characters, like it's very loving, like, and it's doing it in a way that is like clear that like Mark Russell loves these characters, and it's like the perfect balance. Yeah,
and the Mixelplick thing at the beginning, and I mean, even with the Justice League, like he paints like Superman gets a lot of time where he's talking about like basically his like belief system throughout, and like what it means to be Superman and that kind of stuff.
And I love that speech that he gives to Jane at the end. Like, I know I facetiously said I love that Superman is the villain of this book, and in some ways he is, but I love that he has that, like, you know, moment at the end where he comes to Jane and actually says something very profound to her about how he also understands that the things that they do are not necessarily like, maybe in the moment they're doing the right thing, but they're not actually making the world a better place. But you have to like do what you can in a compromised world to, you know, leave a positive impression on it, which I understand why like that rings hollow coming from a guy who could solve all the world's problems if he felt like it. But also like that also goes to like, you know, at the end of the day, like he's more Clark Kent than he is Kal-El. He you know, we can sit here and intellectualize about how like Superman has all these powers, but at the end of the day, he is more human than he is Superman. And that's why he still has that perspective at the end of the day, that he can't shape humanity's destiny for them. He can't go out and do that. And frankly, I don't even know. And this is something that actually like the Tom Taylor, like Jonathan Kent book kind of grapples with, is that like, it doesn't even really occur to Clark that he should be doing that he can do that. Like he doesn't even have the thought that like he could mold the world to his whims.
And when he does, it's in a Justice comic or like when it's
it's always like it never ends well. So I don't know, but yeah, I that moment in like issue 10 or 11 is a really great Superman moment. And was the first, actually, we talked about how Mark Russell hasn't done much DC work. Totally forgot about Superman Space Age, which came out last year, which very much like is an excellent Superman comic, and this is like the first instance of him writing Superman in a way that's like, you know, very clear, understands the character. Highly recommend if you like this. Maybe we'll do it for the show at some point, but if you like Wonder Twins and have like any interest at all in even like a very passing one in Superman and DC stuff, Superman Space Age is fantastic. I can't.
Mark Allred on art too.
Mike Allred on art, yeah, beautiful book.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on Wonder Twins?
I'm looking through my screenshots here to see if there's anything else I want to bring up that I particularly enjoy.
I like that they get the koala back that gets zapped into the Phantom Zone.
They do.
They make sure to get the koala out of the Phantom Zone. And also Colonel 86's Hello Yo. I loved reading that in the heaviest Southern drawl my Midwest brain could imagine. That's the first time I read this book, I did that. This time I read it, I did that. It's a very enjoyable experience. Highly recommend.
I really enjoy, there's one scene where Lex Luthor is talking to like some guy and he's like, why am I so misunderstood? And then the other guy says, I believe the word is hated, sir. And I enjoyed that. Yeah, there are so many little moments. I made a funny edit of a panel from this book where the principal guy asks Jaina, do you know what an adult is, Jaina? And I replaced his reply with, do you know what an adult is, Jaina? A miserable little pile of secrets. So
It sure is.
Shout out to the Castlevania heads in the chat on that one.
Look at them all. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, this was a good book, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
I'd say if you can find it all in the collection, 12 issues, buy that. If you can only get either the first volume or the second volume, I'd get the first volume.
But it's worth reading the whole thing. I mean, there's great stuff in the second volume.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm glad we reread this because I had this impression of it in my mind, like, oh, that's a great 6-issue mini and a mediocre 12-issue maxi. And in reality, it's a very good 12-issue maxi series. There's a lot of good stuff here. I'm glad I reread it.
And it's probably, you go to local con, you'll find this for cheap. This is not going to be a regular price.
Yes, you will find this at a used bookstore for $3.50.
I got mine for $2.99 for volume 1.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like, you always want, I don't know. I'm not going to get into like how bad DC and Marvel are at selling like truly great comics like this one, but it is a travesty that this book did not sell way better than
Batman Hush never goes on sale. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, Dark Knight's Metal outsold this, and part of that is just because like there are probably a lot of people like Emily out there who would really enjoy Wonder Twins, but probably also like Emily would not know it existed unless they had 3 white dudes as friends who did a podcast about weekly comics for 5 years of their lives. So I wish this had gotten to more people because I think there's an audience for stuff like this, and it's not the traditional comics audience, even though this did so well. I actually looked at the numbers out of curiosity for the first 6 issues, and it was hitting 20K a month pretty consistently. But that's still, the 7 through 12 did not hit like that. So
yeah. And for DC Comics, like 20K is like, you're not going to get canceled.
20K is good now. It is funny that like
I have New 52 brain where like if it's 20K, you're getting canceled.
Right. Which is like, it used to be if you were below 30, I think it was like an instant cancellation. The comics market is not what it was in 2011 anymore. And even in 2019, it was not what it was in 2011. You can sell 20K copies of a book and be fine. Even though Wonder Twins, again, should sell way more than that. Way more people should read it. But unfortunately, it did not.
Nope.
So,
but
hopefully some people listen to this episode and go, that sounds interesting. And they go read it. And then they tell their friends to go read it. And more people read the Mark Russell and Stephen Byrne Wonder Twins because it's a great book. And
it is.
really want people to go out and enjoy it.
And everybody that reads it, send $5 to Crying in the Book Club to keep us going.
Yeah.
It only works if you pay. You hear that sound? That's the sound.
What's that
Yo,
sound,
that's
Alex?
the opening riff of "In for a World of Hurt" by the band.
That's crazy. I thought that's the sound of, wow, that's the Doomsday Clock, which was coming out around this time, actually. Fun fact. But I don't know what it's doing here, but it's hanging out, which means it's time for our favorite segment.
One last aside before we get to that. That really is the Inside You There Are Two Wolves is DC publishing Doomsday Clock and the Wonder Twins at the same time. One, a loving reinterpretation of classic characters. The other, whatever the opposite of
Doomsday
that is.
Clock. Hey, the Riddler's in Doomsday Clock, so. Speaking of things that make us cry, Emily, what is your cry space for this week?
Unfortunately, because John Luke and I spent a good deal of time talking before the recording, and also because we are in group chats together, so I've talked about this at length already. You guys already know what my cry space is, and it's that I saw Fall Out Boy, and it was incredible and beautiful, and I took myself 6 hours to Atlanta to see Fall Out Boy alone, and because I was supposed to go with somebody, but then at the very last second they had a scheduling conflict, so I just went by myself. And they played a song that they had never played live before, which was baller. It was From Now On We Are Enemies, which was a bonus track on their Best Of album, Believers Never Die. And they also played my favorite song of theirs of all time, which is Grand Theft Autumn, Where's Your Boy? And I had a good time with that. They also played a song from their new album that I put on a playlist that I made for my girlfriend, so that did make me cry a lot. But it was an incredible show, and it was also the first concert that I've been to since the pandemic hit, so that was also just really special.
Yay.
And I had a great time.
Yay! That's wonderful. Jean-Luc, did you also watch Fall Out Boy in Atlanta and not tell Emily?
It would be really funny if I had been at the same show and
That would
had
have been
just
so
avoided
funny.
her.
I feel like I wouldn't have been able to miss you.
What do you mean? I'm very missable in a Fall Out Boy crowd. Come on, there's got to be like hundreds of average looking white dudes at a Fall Out Boy concert.
Because of the way that the venue was set up, because it was an amphitheater, I feel like if you had been out on like the lawn area where I also was, which is where the cheap tickets were, which is where I assume that you would be.
I never, at amphitheater shows, I always pay extra to not be on the lawn. I hate being on the lawn.
Yeah? Oh,
he hates the lawn. Don't get him started.
I love the lawn because I can roll up with a joint that I snuck in my bra and just
That's fair.
in the middle of the lawn.
Unlike you, I live in a state where it's legal, so I can just take gummies into shows with me.
I mean, if it were legal, I would just bring a joint.
Yeah. No, I was not at a Fall Out Boy show.
Boo.
Boo.
I wouldn't mind seeing Fall Out Boy, but like, I'm not the Fall Out Boy. The Fall Out Boy is like if they're on a festival.
Crazy Train.
That's pretty funny. Fall Out Boy is one of those bands that they're like, funny. If they're on a festival lineup, I will get excited about it and go see them and have a good time. But because of like, it's like, or if they were like less popular than they are, I would go see them because their tickets would be like way cheaper, right? So like if they were playing like general admission shows or whatever, like yeah, I'd go see Fall Out Boy. But no, my cry space is that not to, once again go into the Jean-Luc watched a movie that made him feel something. Well, but
Garfield, The Tale of Two Kitties.
You nailed it. I watched the 2013 Gia Zonki film A Touch of Sin a few days ago, which I highly recommend to people, but B also did like by the end actually did get me to tears. There were a couple moments, not like bawling or anything, but there were a couple moments before where I was like really feeling stuff, and then by the end there was just some things that really really moved me. It's a movie kind of about like it's like these different vignettes that are all sort of connected by a couple characters that like cross paths with each other unknowingly, but about people who are, you know, sort of victimized and exploited by capitalism, and it snaps them and leads them to commit these really atrocious acts of violence, often to other people, but sometimes to themselves. So it really landed for me. I highly recommend it. It is absolutely beautifully shot. The score is fantastic, and the sort of like there's like a matter of factness to it about how like the inevitability of like how people just crack under the pressure of being exploited by, you know, wage labor day in and day out, and it just leads them to do like really horrific things. Highly recommend it. Very good movie. Maybe not quite for the faint of heart. There are some moments of like pretty disturbing violence, and not just like you know, people getting blown apart by guns, but also like sexual violence and stuff like that. So definitely go in like knowing stuff like that, but highly, highly recommend it. Really landed for me. Really just like made me feel very contemplative and reflected on the state of the world that we live in. Highly recommend it.
Hell yeah.
I have not liked my work recently. But I went to a bachelor party at my friend's. His family like has like a farmhouse like 2 hours away. So it was just nice to spend the weekend like hanging out, playing board games, and then at nighttime we'd like drink and like stare at the stars and talk about stuff. And it was like, oh, it was nice.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
It was a lovely time.
That's a plot line in the new episodes of Riverdale.
I'm excited to get there. Next Thursday.
Oh man, I need you guys to be caught up on Riverdale, because the person I watch it with it is so like out and like not into it anymore, and I understand why. But man, the last 2 episodes have some. They cooked a little bit with.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. And this is how I felt when you were not in the superhero season, and I was like, they're doing so much stuff. It's so silly. It's great. Oh, it's a great show.
Are we gonna have to do a Riverdale?
Oh yeah, when it's done,
when season 7 ends, we should do a
super episode.
Yeah.
We should block off like a whole day and talk about Riverdale.
We could go season by season. We could do a full Riverdale month.
Oh boy,
we could do a year.
We could change the podcast.
Unfortunately, we really could just become a Riverdale podcast.
I think the 3 of us in particular would have no qualms about, as soon as Riverdale ends, just being like, we don't talk about comics anymore. We're a Riverdale rewatch podcast.
That's fine.
Now.
That's fine. And it would be fun to have someone on the show, like, you know, like we throw a chat on
Crying
here.
in the White Worm.
And just like, you know, we go through the show and it's like, this is what happened.
It would be funny.
Like, no
it would be funny for as many episodes as we have to like get a guest who has never seen the show before and has only watched the episode that we're talking about on that show.
Oh, that'd be great.
Has to piece together.
We do 1 episode per season. We pick 1 episode. We do 7 episodes.
Because I think early on, like the first, you know, season 1, like you get it. Like even if you come into the season 1 finale, you can probably be like, okay, I get a sense for this. By the time you're in like Griffins and Gargoyles,
season 3, like season 2 starts to go off the edge a bit.
Whoever the guest would be for season 4, episode 3, when the preacher gets in the Evel Knievel outfit, tries to blast off the roof of an insane asylum in a rocket ship. That I would feel for them, because they would be so long. It's that simple.
But then you have the highs and lows of high school football, which I think is season 3. Like,
yeah. But everyone knows the highs and lows of high school football. I feel like that's kind of like in the, you know, I'm not like the Jughead like monologue. Yeah,
that's
like
true.
Those 2 things are kind of like,
that's such like a small part of the episode that you don't get the rest of it, where you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, I'm talking myself into doing this.
All this Riverdale talk that you're gonna have to cut out.
I'm not cutting the
No,
Riverdale
no,
talk.
no,
People
no.
want to hear that.
If anything, we'll cut half the comics talk. That's the system. But
We do
that
have to wrap up because I think we're
Yeah.
hitting 90 minutes on this episode.
we
We are hitting 90.
it always tricks me because whenever we have to like stop and do it, and I'm like, oh, we've only been recording for 30 minutes. That's like our
No.
last week. I was like, that was great. We did it in 50 minutes, and John was like, you forgot about the hour and 30 we did before, and I'm like, wow.
We
No,
talked
it's
about
like-
Berserk for a
it was-
long time.
It was. I think that cumulatively was only 2 hours.
It was 2:10, I think. 2 hours 10
Oh.
minutes, something like that.
Well,
Well, the point is,
That's before I cut stuff. Like once I cut stuff out, it was a little under 2 hours.
yeah.
we got some plugs. You can follow our show on Twitter, the famous social media network.
Please, Alex, it's called X.
It is fucking not.
And the app logo looks like when you open it, you're gonna find some people who are gonna fuck you in a dark alley. So, that's where
That's
you can
Twitter.
find our podcast.
That's
I
still
mean, that's
Twitter.
what I use Twitter for.
That's Twitter for. Remember to rate us if you
That
like.
rocks. That rocks. I wish I used Twitter for that.
If you like
I'm
these
just
little
like
bits,
posting dumb shit.
you should rate and review us 5 stars on all your podcast platforms, unless it's out of 10. Because if
And
you
if
only
you
give us a
fuck me
5,
in a dark alley, you should, write a review saying I want to fuck Jean-Luc in a dark alley.
I'm gonna
And
listen to this episode to see if
can
Jean-Luc
make it
cuts this.
happen.
I don't think he's gonna cut this. But that's
I'm
cool.
gonna be really embarrassed when I listen to this episode sober in like a week and a half, and I'm like, why did I say that?
But see, like it's so,
true, but
it's
why
so
did
late-
I put it
so
out
late in
there
the
in
show.
public?
It's so late in the show. I don't even think you'll see it. And I think this stays. I think this stays. But you know what? You can tweet at Jean-Luc on wherever you tweet. Wherever you tweet, you can Mountain Dew Liker. Check him out. Check him out on Letterboxd because he's been a little movie fiend. He's been gobbling up the movies and spitting out maybe not Letterboxd reviews, but at least the scores. Yeah.
I actually wrote some stuff on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Not like anything long, but
Yeah.
I wrote a little bit about A Touch of Sin, and I wrote a little bit about the Australian horror film Talk to Me, which, by the way, very fun, worth seeing.
Australians, very fun. You can.
Luke, are you on Blue Sky?
Are you kidding me?
He's on Truth Social.
Dude. Blue Sky has the most try-hard loser energy of any social media.
You can
Okay,
find
so-
Emily on Blue Sky at.
I want an invite code.
No, dude, I've seen screenshots of Blue Sky posts, and they are worse than like some of the most awful Twitter posts I've ever seen.
You can find Emily.
Look, if
at
you're on Blue Sky,
Empanada.
do your thing.
You can find me on Blue Sky at panned.bsky.social or whatever the fuck.
Nice. And
See,
on
it's so complicated. It's panned.bsky.social. I'm not typing that in.
I mean, everybody is .bsky.social or whatever.
Yeah, and it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Twitter, look, the worst thing about the Elon
I
Musk
just like
acquisition
being
of
a part of an invite-only club.
Of course you do. But the worst thing about Elon Musk taking over Twitter is that like he ruined what was the most beautiful social media platform.
I like that
That's true.
the most contentious part of this episode is the plugs. I appreciate that. I like that. That's good. That's give people what they want. You can find Emily on Letterboxd at Pandabor, Twitch Pandabor, and in many podcasts such as Imagine Meat and Utana, Fresh Podcast Market, That Looks Terrible, and producing shows you might have heard of like Big Steppy, and nothing else is written here, so I can't say anything else.
There should also be a loser like me, but
And Loser Like Me.
I guess it's not there.
That Looks Terrible is a fun show. It's a great show. You should check it out. And the rest.
I endorse That Looks Terrible.
There be episodes, would they?
How many are out right now?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh, the Velma's one's not out yet. I swear I was on the show, guys.
Yeah, no, it's look, I'm not editing it. So
Honestly,
I have
at this point,
literally
if you
no
just want-
control.
If somebody wants to send me the files for the episode I was on, I will edit it and send the edited version because I had a lot of fun being on that show. I think we had a good conversation about Winnie the
We
Pooh,
did.
Blood and Honey, and I would like people
We
to be able to
did.
hear it.
We did. I will propose.
I will do
Jean-Luc-
this also for the Velma episodes and the Morbius episode. You may notice
Okay,
a
I
trend
will-
between those, which is that my friends are on them.
I will propose this to the person with the file.
You should propose this to Jean-Luc when he's completely sober too, to make sure he
No,
wants to edit
Jean-Luc-
these.
Jean-Luc is no, John Luke is on the record saying that he would do this, so I don't have to propose this to sober John Luke. He's already agreed.
Well, thanks for coming by the show and for speaking about the Wonder Twins. Remember, no matter which way things go.
Next episode, we're talking about Wonder Woman Earth 1 by Grant
Yep.
Morrison, volumes
No matter
1 through
what.
3. So no matter which way things
1
go,
through 3?
we'll be discussing that. Dude, they're
Jesus.
so short. They're so short. I burned through volumes 1 and 2 in like an hour and a half last night. So
But there's too much kissing.
There's a lot, dude.
If you like kissing, you'll love Wonder Woman's Volume 1 and 2. I haven't read Volume 3.
It is a beautiful book in many, many ways. I'll leave it at that.
Well, goodbye.
Oh, did you guys listen to the new Carly Rae Jepsen album?
Oh yeah, actually, I need to give it another listen, but I liked what I heard.
Did you listen to it, Alex?
I don't like it. I listened to it in order once. I mean, I've only listened to it once. But first thoughts are like, oh boy, it's been a couple albums since I really liked Carly Rae Jepsen. And I mean, like, Loneliest Time was probably like...
You didn't like Loneliest Time?
Eight songs I really liked, but there were a few that I was just like, man, I really don't like these. Whereas Emotion and Dedicated are like banger, 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 banger.
Yeah. Loneliest Time does have a fair amount of like hard misses, but it has the high points on Loneliest Time are so good. Like Talking to Yourself might be my favorite Carly Rae Jepsen song. Like
it's a top 3 for me for sure. Yeah,
it's so good. The Loveliest Time. First of all, the Loveliest Time for who? Carly, not for me certainly. So,
am I the only loveliest time enjoyer in the chat?
Oh no.
Today?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm kind of with you. I need to listen to it again. I found it to be very pleasant background music.
Yeah.
I remember nothing about it.
That's the thing. Like I expect, a Carly Bob to have me singing along to it and like thinking about it after, and
it has like some.
I will admit,
song titles.
None of them have really stuck on me, which is, it is a bummer because even I feel like every Carly Rae Jepsen album, I usually like feel I leave with at least like a song at minimum one song that I kind of can't stop thinking about.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is, but my brain felt very smooth. Some of this just sort of slid off of it. Like I enjoyed the experience, but like.
The song titles are bangers. I think the best part of the album is like actually the song titles, which is like a very backhanded thing, but like they're clever, they're funny. They're like,
I saw the song titles and I got really excited, and then I listened to the album and just didn't remember it. But yeah, like I'm still, I still think about like LA Hallucinations like once a week. It's and a bunch of other songs from Emotion.
The song titles for Olivia Rodrigo's upcoming album have dropped.
Wow. Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah.
You like the single?
I really like the single. I have listened to it many times.
Me too. I don't want to like, it feels mean to like couch it in these terms, but like the amount better it is than every single song on her previous album is like staggering to me.
Well, it was a debut, and she's still a teenager. Well, actually, I don't know. Is she in her 20s now? I don't fucking remember.
I think she is, because I think she was I don't know how old she was actually when.
I feel like she was late teens for the last album, so she's probably early 20s now. But
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Like, maybe you just shouldn't release an album when you're a teenager. It's not my problem. Like, that doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, I'm not saying you have to like it. I just I have adjusted expectations, I guess.
Sure.
When a
That's
kid
fair.
like makes a drawing for Jean-Luc, Jean-Luc's like, "Hey, you should have waited 20 years to do this." It's
Some kids can be very talented when it comes to drawing.
yes.
But these things don't. There's not a sliding scale for this stuff. It's either like
A
Yeah.
friend of mine's kid drew me a big picture of my favorite character from Amphibia, and I have it on my fridge. I will have to
that's
send you.
cute.
I will have to send you a picture. You guys a picture of it because actually it's really good for a 10-year-old. To be honest.
See, some 10-year-olds are talented, but if
Yeah.
I haven't met any.
if your friend's kid produced a shitty drawing, you would not put it on your fridge.
No.
I would still put it on my fridge because that's the type of person I am.
Well,
but
it's
like
not
I
your
wouldn't be.
kid.
But I wouldn't be. But I mean, but it would be a gift to me, so I would feel a little obligated. But like, I wouldn't be telling you about it on this podcast.
See, there you go.
Okay. Well, all that said,
there's that.
I'll listen to Loveliest Time again. I'll give it a good 3 or 4 more, and I hope it clicks. I hope it clicks. But I mean, is this the B-side for Loneliest Time? Because normally she just calls them B-sides.
Not
this was
explicitly.
I feel like it's more of like a companion thing than it is.
I think
like,
she's not single anymore, and so that's why it's the loveliest
the
time.
worst thing that can happen to a musician is when they're no longer single. It's just like, I mean, for them, I'm sure it's nice, and I'm happy for her. But in terms of music, I know a few examples of like.
I gotta say, you said that, and I'm just thinking about all the bands where like their best albums are like when they have like a messy breakup with their significant others, and I'm just like, yeah,
So this is what you're hoping for now. You're like, oh, they're together,
dude. The day that. Oh, go
No,
ahead.
no, John. Because I know what you're about to say, and I really want to hear it.
I was just gonna say, I don't think this is gonna happen because I get the sense that they have a very healthy relationship and like genuinely really love each other. But if Claudio Sanchez and Chandra Eckert ever get divorced, we are getting the
most banger album of all time.
best Coheed and Cambria. Like the Beatles could not stand up to like the thing that Claudio would produce in that case.
We would get the best album ever made.
It would be. Yeah, my life would just be the rest of my life would be amazing because I would just be listening to that album forever. And I'm not like rooting for this because like I watch them. They do like Twitch streams and they're really adorable and like good for them. Like they seem like happy, but I'm just saying if it ever happened, the Coheed album we would get would be next level.
I mean, if you think about it, we kind of almost got. We kind of already almost got a breakup album.
We have the Claudio Chandra breakup album, and it's their best album. But I will say that was when they had been dating for like a couple years, and broke up, as opposed to being married and having a son.
Well, no, but I mean, also, like, I'm also talking about fucking Vaxis 2 has extreme divorced energy,
which is what but it has like it doesn't
like
have
it's pandemic relationship struggle energy is what it really
right
is.
Right, but it doesn't have the kind of like there's no like how like at the end of Good Apollo in Final Cut he does that whole thing where he's like, if I had my way I'd crush your face in the door, and you're like it's bad that you're singing along to it, but like it rocks so hard.
Yeah.
Vaxis 2 has nothing like that on it.
No, you're absolutely right.
He did not invent a fake serial killer for Vaxis 2. So
no, he's unfortunately more mature now.
See, yeah, which on one hand good because we don't get Al the Killer. On the other hand, bad because without Al the Killer we would not have Back End of Forever. So who's to say if it's good or not?
Who's to say if it's good or bad?
Not me, that's for sure.
I'm to say that my world leader and his wife are no longer together, and
that's true.
I'm inconsolable.
Oh, I heard he was shooting his shot with Taylor Swift.
I don't know about that.
There's one kind of shot that Justin Trudeau should get. and it's to the fucking brain.
He was in her replies on Twitter.
Oh wow, look at the timing. Also, she added 6 tour dates for Toronto. 6 tour dates. That's a lot of tour
maybe
dates.
I'm actually going to come to Toronto.
I signed up for the pre-sale so I could scalp the tickets and pay for my trip to Japan. But maybe I'll get
them to me
Hell yeah,
for
King.
like the normal price.
Yeah. Well, I'll put aside a couple extra for my friends and family because I'm so good at getting tickets.
Although I will say, I was looking at flights to go to Toronto. Well, Alex and I were looking together, and there's one flight per day from PDX to Toronto, and it's
That's
like
direct.
and it's like sold out on most days. So it's like what should be like a 4.5 hour flight becomes like a 12-hour ordeal.
Jeez.
to
And
get
then
to
John Luke has to watch the Overwatch League, so it's like
Yeah, that is what we were. Yeah, we were looking at the.
I still have hope on it. I think closer, like they do add flights and stuff happens, but
well, there'll just be so much demand for people to see the final Overwatch League in-person event that they'll have no choice but to add more flights.
They'd better. But we're not here to talk about the Overwatch League or Coheed and his Cambria or Carly Rae Jepsen.
Before we get started, I would actually like to Alex, you sent a video to the chat and you said that this was important pre-episode viewing, and I've had it pulled up here because I thought that it would be a good idea to watch this right before we start.
This is perfect.
So I'm going to do that. This video is a YouTube video, and it is Ridiculous Wonder Twin Powers, and it is 30 seconds long, and I'm clicking on it right now.
Jaina's kind of nice with it in this video.
You still think so?
You should edit in the audio from the video into this bit so that the listeners can experience this.
I prefer having it silence and John Luke being. Jane's kind of nice with it though. But
I knew that.
That was great.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's the classic. You know, they have their powers, they activate, and she's a seagull. He's an ice gondola because he can only turn into water and other forms of water. So,
I think it is kind of cheating to be like, I'm a gondola but made out of ice.
I mean, that's his whole thing.
Like, wouldn't you just be like, oh, in the form of ice machine gun?
Yeah, except
be a machine gun.
Bullets.
Except it was the 70s, and you can't show that on TV in your cartoon. You have to be a gondola. That's as risque.
So much has changed since then.
It's true.
They let you put machine guns in children's shows now.
Yeah.